Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Hey folks, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode number 52. Know nothing. All right, folks, before we get into the meat of the episode, as I always do, I want to talk a little bit about my favorite 501c3 organization that supports the law enforcement community, and that, of course, is the Overwatch Collective. The Overwatch Collective is a nonprofit and podcast funding therapy sessions and supporting mental health initiatives for our first responders, our veterans, and their families. The motto over there is one more is one less, and I take that to heart because one more individual we can provide services to is one less statistic. Please check out the Overwatch Collective at theoverwatchcollective.com. Once you're over there, you can make a donation, you can buy some gear, or you can purchase a ticket to their annual fundraiser, which is coming up this week on August 24th in San Mateo, California. If you just happen to be in Northern California, if you happen to be in the Bay Area, I hope you will go check that out. It's their big annual fundraiser. That's how they raise a lot of the money that they then turn around and spend on funding therapy sessions and mental health initiatives for our first responders, veterans, and their families. Greg and his people are doing great things for the law enforcement community. Please support their efforts at the overwatchcollective.com. Let me start you out with a quote, guys. The first thing a pretender to philosophy must do is get rid of their presuppositions. A person is not going to undertake to learn anything that they think they already know. That is Marcus Aurelius writing to himself in his journal 2,000 years ago, but that advice is excellent today as well. The first thing we got to do if we want to get better at something is get rid of our presuppositions, right? We can never learn anything that we think we already know. So for those that don't know, presuppositions, let me give you the thesaurus version. Presuppositions are just the ideas, the biases, the assumptions that we hold about the world, right? It's all based on our past experiences. So we assume something because of past experiences. That's a presupposition. Now, these things shape our perceptions of reality. They influence how we interpret new information. We filter everything through these presuppositions, right? New information, new experiences is always filtered through this lens of what has come before. But clinging too tightly to these presuppositions can actually hinder our ability to learn and grow. Now, this happens all the time in law enforcement, right? We make presuppositions. We assume a lot based on our past experience. We even write that in our memos. We write about, like, my experience led me to believe X, Y, and Z, right? Like, I did X because of Y. You know, these factors were considered in making this decision. The United States Marine Corps, has a similar thought process to what Marcus Aurelius is talking about, though. Right? They place a strong emphasis on the ability to learn and grow in the leadership principles that they teach to their officers and their non-commissioned officers. In fact, their first leadership principle is know yourself and seek improvement. That sounds pretty darn similar, to Marcus Aurelius's first principle here. The first thing a pretender to philosophy must do is get rid of their presuppositions. Know yourself and then seek improvement. So the Marine Corps understands that leaders who know themselves, who understand not only what they know, but what they don't know, are better equipped to make informed decisions. They're better equipped to communicate effectively. They're better equipped to build authentic relationships with those they are leading. They also understand that their own biases, their own preferences, their own areas for growth is going to allow them to lead with integrity and humility, right? In other words, they know what they know what they don't know. That is what the Marine Corps teaches. It teaches you to understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, because it gives you more room for improvement. It allows you to strive for self-improvement. It allows you to have room for growth. It allows you to lead with integrity and with humility when you first get rid of your suppositions, understand what you know, understand what you don't know, walk into situations with that level of confidence. And by striving for self-improvement, by striving for areas where they have room for self-improvement, not just Marine Corps leaders, but any leaders can set an example to their subordinates and inspire a culture of excellence. This is absolutely true within law enforcement. How many times have you had a supervisor who's never done what you're doing in your career. And I can think of dozens of examples in my own career where this occurred, where I worked the type of cases that nobody in my agency was doing, nobody in my chain of command had ever done. Now, if I had a supervisor who was caught up on rank and title and was trying to direct my investigations, that would have been deeply frustrating. Instead, I had supervisors who knew what they knew and knew what they didn't know. And so they were able to lead with integrity and humility. They were able to allow me to educate and teach them. And they were receptive to that. That's super important in your career, in any case, right? One of the most important things a leader can do is recognize when that appeal to authority doesn't matter, when somebody's knowledge exceeds your own and you take a back seat and learn. That's an incredibly important and humble leadership characteristic. And that's what Marcus is saying here. That's what the Marine Corps is saying. That's what you should be saying if you're a law enforcement leader. Because when we set aside our ego and we acknowledge that there's always more to learn, even in areas where we may consider ourselves experts, we increase our intellectual humility. We approach our path with a more open and humble mind. We become more respected as leaders. Said in a shorter, more succinct way, be humble enough to know what you do not know. So again, bringing it back to the top here, Marcus Aurelius and the United States Marine Corps encourage us deeply to get rid of presuppositions. Let those biases, those ideas, those assumptions fall by the wayside. Don't filter everything to those past experiences, beliefs, and cultural influences. Recognize and understand what you don't know. Because if you think you know it all already, if you think that rank on your shoulder or on your epaulette empowers you with knowledge beyond what you actually know, you will never improve. There will be no room for self-improvement because you're not humble enough to allow it. Here's your journal prompt for today, folks. Let me leave you with this. I want you to sit down and actually ask yourself where your perceived knowledge, where your rank and title, where that appeal to authority is interfering with your intellectual growth. I want you to think of recent conversations you had with subordinates or with other, maybe you're an FTO, maybe somebody who is coming straight out of the academy has something they could share with you that you could learn from if you were humble enough to allow it. I want you to think of a recent incident. I want you to write it down. I want you to target and identify an area where you haven't been humble enough to allow yourself some intellectual growth, where your perceived knowledge, where your presuppositions are interfering with your intellectual growth. Folks, that's what I got for you today. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support this podcast, there's a few ways that you can do so. Number one, you can pick up a copy of my new book, In Valor 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, or anywhere else you get your books. It's available on Kindle and Nook for instant download right now, or you can get it on Amazon. They'll send it to you on Prime. You'll have it in a day or two. Very similar to what we do on this podcast. It's a great resource. It's going to give you the ability to practice this philosophy daily. And as we say often here, this is a philosophy that is intended to be practiced. The only way you get better at it, the only way it makes changes in your lives is if you do it every single day. That book is going to give you quotes, contextualization, and journal entries on a daily basis. It's going to allow you to integrate these lessons that are directly relatable to your job. It's going to allow you to integrate these lessons so that you can become a more stoic individual, an individual who has greater emotional control, who has a greater appreciation for what they control, what they do not, and who approaches life more balanced with a clearer head. That's what I want for each of you. Number two, you can subscribe to the Stoic Responder on Substack for absolutely free at thestoicresponder.substack.com. On that page, you can get all 4 podcasts delivered to your email every single week, in addition to getting my weekly newsletters that come out on Mondays that have Stoic leadership lessons and personal development tips. You don't want to miss those. The only place you can get them is stoicresponder.substack.com. And finally, and the easiest thing that you can do, like, share, and subscribe this podcast wherever you happen to be getting it. Make sure that it is downloading every single time that it comes out. Get those downloads, share them with somebody else who can benefit from what we are doing here as well. Thanks so much. We got one more episode for you this week. Until tomorrow, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, how to roll.